Welcome to MTD Question Time Live. Today, we're going to be discussing how you can improve your process and reduce your downtime. I'm Gio hosting today's show, and I have the pleasure to be joined by a very good friend, an industry leader, and a very well-known face within the industry. Nick Peter, welcome to Question Time Live.
Hi, everybody.
So, Nick, how have you been adapting to this current environment that we find ourselves in?
I think it's been a continuous adaptation at the moment, to be honest. It seems to be changing day by day. Obviously, what we're trying to do is keep the company working as efficiently as we can do in any way, shape or form. At the moment, everybody is at home working on laptops, but they can see the server here quite easily. It's almost like they're sitting here. There's only me in the office at the moment. Well, it's a couple of us in the office at the moment, just to really get things out the door, really, as much as possible. But we're constantly in touch with each other. We've got a Snapchat channel for between all the employees as well. So, and obviously email each other. The phones are all diverted. So it's almost like we're together, but we're not together. Everybody's separate at home. But the only thing we're not really doing is all sitting around in the office chatting. But there's still business out there, and we've had lots of orders in the past 2 weeks at least for medical parts and all sorts of things, even parts for the Nightingale hospitals and things like that. So, you know, it's important to keep going, I think, and it's important, even in a very, very, very small way like we do, to actually supply parts to keep things going.
Well, so it's positive to hear that you're still busy, Nick, and you're obviously still dispatching your product.
Yeah.
What about stock levels, Nick? How are you finding that?
Well, luckily, I mean, again, Germany are still producing goods and still shipping things. So we've had to change our stock levels to a certain extent. And there are sort of bits that we don't need to order now and other bits that we've actually doubled up on stock because we've now realised that's what people want. So we have actually made sure that we've increased our stock of certain parts to make sure that we've got them there ready to dispatch quickly. Because the only issue we have found a little bit is that the carriers now are a little bit unreliable, just a little bit, because I think the volume of work that they've got delivering things to people's houses now, the amount of destinations they have to go to is vast.
And installations, Nick, you were quite heavily involved as a company with installations, on-site installations. How are you getting around that issue?
Yeah, I mean, that's something we've developed and are developing at the moment, to be honest, because we, as an employer, I don't want to put people at risk or engineers at risk going into factories where they're going to possibly come into contact with other people who put each other at risk. So what we're developing at the moment, we're trying it out, is a series of instruction sheets that will go out with chuck orders, and they will be sort of pictorial, stage by stage fitting instructions, and then obviously coupled up with a video link similar to what we're doing now, really, where there's two pictures, one of the customer fitting, one of me. We both see each other, and actually you can then start to actually give instructions to people in real time rather than try and guess it on the end of a phone. You can actually see what people are doing. So it's a way of, I suppose, evolving things in these strange times to do something in a slightly different way, rather than charge down a motorway 200 miles and fit the chuck ourselves, instruct somebody else almost as if you're there. So you're actually teaching somebody else with full backup of the expert, if you like, who the engineer is not on site, but he's there at the end of a video link, or plus, you know, they get a crib sheet to tell them exactly how to do it.
So you're working remotely, which kind of falls into the kind of industry 4.0 kind of umbrella. Would you kind of see yourselves working more remotely as a company when we come out of this current situation?
Well, I think that the way that I've just described some of our installation side of it is something that could carry on. There is no reason we couldn't carry on with that, because you're saving time. You know, charging down the motorway for 200 miles, I'm not saying we wouldn't ever do it, but charging down the motorway for 200 miles takes time, and it takes a whole day then to install probably one chuck, which may take an hour or a couple of hours, whereas we can do probably 4 or 5 in a day if we're instructing people how to do it sitting behind a desk.
No, it's a really good point, and I think it's something that a lot more people will be using definitely when we come out of this current situation. Now, today would have been the very first day at Mac 2020. We will be finding out some of the latest innovations and technologies that you would have been exhibiting at the show, Nick. But firstly, can you just tell us a little bit about your background, why you got into engineering, when you got into engineering, and what you like about engineering?
Yeah, I suppose this all starts with your dad, really. My dad was an engineer, so he's always building things, fixing things, mending things around the house. So you tend to sort of just follow on with that, really. So when you're actually given something by your granddad, a complicated electrical switchgear box, and he says to you, "I'm going to come back next week. If you can take all that apart and put it all back together again," he says, "I'll give you £1." So I took all this electrical switchgear boxes were complicated little brass bits and pieces, springs and all sorts of things. And I took it all to bits and worked out how it all went back together again. But he said he had to work, had to push the button, and I had to physically go on and off. I had one brass bit left that I couldn't find out where it went, but it still worked. So I told him, I never ever told him that I had this one brass bit left. I did get the £1, but I never told him I'd still got the brass bit left. And these sort of things just stay with you, really. So, you know, I had a dad, my granddad was an electrical engineer, my dad was a pattern maker. So in the end, you start fixing cars as you start to, become a time, and apprenticeship was a natural thing to do, to be honest, and that followed on, and that's where I am now. So now it isn't, you don't suddenly become the boss of a company. You have to start at the bottom and learn all these things over a long period of time.
And you never stop learning, in my opinion, Nick.
Well,
I
don't like the word expert, to be honest. I mean, it's a very overused word because I don't think anybody knows everything about anything, to be honest. You're always learning all the time, and if you stop learning, then there's something a bit strange about it.
Yeah, we stop evolving effectively, don't we? I think that now you started Hainbuch UK approximately 12 years ago, I believe, Nick. Now, Hainbuch since then, it's everywhere. You've done an absolutely unbelievable job. It's the preferred choice for many OEMs and end users alike. Tell us a little bit about Hainbuch, your products, and for people that may be watching this that are unfamiliar with Hainbuch.
Yeah, I mean, Heinberger are a German company. It started a very small family company. It started in a garage probably about 60 years ago, really just making collets and bits and pieces for engineers around in the local sort of area in southern Germany. They then decided that it would be a good idea that changing collets over on multi-spindle machines, things like that, took ages. So it would be a good idea to invent something that would speed everything up. So we've started right at the beginning, 60 years ago, trying to improve production. And they realised that if you split a normal spring collet into two, i.e. a back body and a front body, you can change it quite quickly. You leave the back body on the machine and you just change the front collet with a little gun. And that's 60 years ago, and that's developed now into a massive work holding system that's fitted onto most manufacturers' machine tools around the world, really. We've still got some way to go, and we're still evolving products and things like that, but it's an overall work holding system to give you the best work holding product for the quickest changeover, the highest accuracy, and the biggest production values.
We're going to be discussing your work holding solutions in a lot more detail later on in this live question time. However, let's start with Mac 2020. What would have been the latest innovation that you would have been exhibiting there this week?
Well, we're pushing quite heavily at the moment. We've got a newish collet system. It's been developed. It's been around for a few years now, but it's been developed now to the point where it is better than our normal collet system. And this is a hexagonal collet. I don't know where we can see that. Whoop, about there, which is a bit strange. It's a hexagonal collet system. And as you can see, the holes in the front here for changing over, and the whole back of that collapses with rubber in between. And that's a hexagonal collet. This is a very accurate high rigidity collet, and it gives you about 35 to 40% more clamping pressure than our normal system, and it's got just as much accuracy. We're looking at micron accuracy. It's fast to change over, and it takes all our range of adaptions. So we think this is the latest product that will actually really take off very, very soon.
And for people that were using the round collets, is it
Mm-hmm.
going to be a big job for them to get them to change from round to hexagonal?
No, this will be it'll be an evolving thing, really. There's no way we're going to go into machine shops and say throw away all your nice span top collets, throw them all away. They're no good. They're absolutely perfect. Nothing wrong with them at all. This is an evolving process where you make something that's good, and then you find something that's a little bit better. So you gradually evolve that. So we've started rolling this out to the machine tool manufacturers now and fitting this as standard. So gradually this will change over, and we're probably looking 10 years, something like that. But we're not going to stop selling the round collets or anything like that, because that system, which is parallel to this, is a perfectly good system. We're just trying to keep up with modern developments in machine tools, speeds, feeds, things like that. So we need to be able to hit parts faster, harder. So we've got to increase accuracies, we've got to increase rigidity, we've got to increase clamping pressures. So we're just sort of moving things slowly on, really, as much as we can. But there's no way we're going to sort of change the base system. This is just an add-on parallel system to it.
So, I mean, we visited you guys at EMO in September last year. As a company, you're continuously evolving the technology and the products that you supply the industry. And there was many on show, from automation, quick changeover products for the spindle noses of machines, 0 point products. This live question time is predominantly about kind of improving processes and reducing downtimes. Can you give our listeners, or the people that are watching this show, an indication to how or why workholding is just so important in the process, and how it can significantly reduce downtime on any machine tool?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, most machine tools, up until recently, have been supplied with a 3-jaw chuck, which is a sort of a do-everything work-holding device, really, which was developed by Cushman's, I think, 120 years ago, something like that. But there's nothing wrong with it at all. But if you want to hit things really hard now, you want maximum accuracy, you want to change over to the next sort of work-holding, the ideal work-holding, the last thing you want to be doing is taking a 3-jaw chuck on and off. They are horrible things to change. They're heavy. Health and safety doesn't like lifting the things. You've got to have a crane to get them off. So the best thing to do is to put a system on there that you can change over accurately and quickly. So if I want a mandrel and I want to clamp internally on something, I don't want to take a 3-jaw chuck off and put a mandrel on. I want to quickly, easily put a mandrel into something, bolt it up, not bother trying to 0 point it. I'm not trying to actually get it running true, but to make sure that it's a 0 point system on it. So when it bolts back in, I know it's true, done, finished. And I've got a mandrel on there. If I take that off, I've got a collet chuck underneath it. If I want something else, something more bespoke, maybe a center or a face driver or a magnetic chuck, or if I want a 3-jaw chuck, if it's the best form of work holding, I want to be able to put a 3-jaw chuck on there very, very quickly. So we've got a base collet chuck system which stays on there, which does the maximum through bore of the machine. So if you've got bar capacity of, I don't know, 65 millimeters, we put a 65 millimeter collet chuck on there. So that collet chuck, which is small, compact, little vibration, very high accuracy, will do 65 millimeter bar. Anything over that, if you want billets, then you can put a 3-jaw chuck in there. Our 3-jaw chuck actually has got a 0 point system on the back. So literally 3 screws and it's on, working. Take that off, that takes about a minute. clean it round with a rag, make sure the taper's all true. You can put a mandrel in there. That takes another minute, couple of minutes. Face driver, anything you want to put on and off. It's easy. Anybody can do it. And you're still maintaining your accuracy and above all your rigidity.
I mean, in the past, Nick, I think engineers were certainly guilty of just using their free jaw chuck for pretty much any application. The free jaw chuck would have come with the machine, and most commonly, the only time that they would change that for a collet chuck would be if they added a bar feeder to the machine. In most scenarios. Now, you mentioned your products; they're so synonymous, really, with saving setup times. They're modular, they're flexible, and effectively, they work. Not only do they save the setup time, but as you mentioned, they give you the accuracy that you need. But they're also transferable to milling applications with the 0 point aspect. Can you explain about some of your stationary products that lend themselves to milling machines as well as lathes? Because a lot of people associate Hainbuch mainly with lathes.
Absolutely. We've got a reputation for turning machines, collet chucks, if you like. But a few years ago, we evolved that system to also fit stationary machines, 5-axis milling machines, tables, inspection equipment. So basically, we've got a collet, which could be a 65mm collet. I showed you the collet here that we had earlier. That collet is the main clamping element. There's no reason why you shouldn't use that, not just on your lathe, but if you put it in a stationary device, you can use it quite extensively on a milling machine. So that chuck, that collet that you've bought for your lathe, you can easily use the same work holding element on the milling machine. And the amount of clamping pressure that you get with that, compared to, again, the standard sort of vice, if you like, on a milling machine, is incredible. So we can clamp parts which have been probably bossed up at the back or something like that with this, and really hit it very, very hard with a milling machine, and keep vibration to a minimum, because it's really important in these times that actually you keep vibration down to keep your tool life up.
Yeah, I mean, there's many examples of the stationary products on the NTD CNC site. When me and Dave Noakes went to Tecamet last year, they're using a lot of the stationary products on the 5-axis machines there to make medical components, and on the lathes too. And they've got a lot of bespoke products from Hainbuch as well, Nick, that you also supply. Maybe other people may not be familiar with that. Now, you mentioned vibration. Now, what consequences does vibration have on the machine tool, but not only the machine tool, the cutting tools and the part?
Yeah, well, everybody's trying to actually hit parts as hard as you can, take as much material off at one time as you can. But obviously that has consequences. If you're not holding the part rigidly, there's vibration in the part while it's being held. The first thing that's going to happen is your surface finish decreases. And also you find that the tool life decreases quite extensively as well. So you're replacing tools and tips on a regular basis, whereas if it's held solidly, you don't have to actually replace the tool tip so often. And that's a big cost advantage, which can be quite extensive over a period of time. You're replacing tips every 20, 30 parts when it should be every 200-300 parts. So it's important to use the right work holding in the right way and hold the parts solidly. But also, if your parts not hold rigidly, let's say you've got vibration in the spindle, when the work holding and going around a 3-jaw chuck is out of balance, then you've got vibration in the machine. That will then introduce vibration into the part and do all these horrible things. But we're putting the collet chuck on. Our collet chucks are all dynamically balanced, so we shouldn't feel any vibration from that. So you're starting from the main chuck on the spindle already balanced completely, so anything else you put on there is then balanced as well.
Yeah, I think, in my opinion, Nick, if you haven't got the correct work holding, you can't use your machine tool to its full capabilities in any way, shape or form. I think vibration, without a shadow of a doubt, should be the first thing you should look to eliminate if you're looking to improve your machining processes. Now, Nick, we mentioned earlier on in this chat Industry 4.0 and automation, something that you're also involved with, and in my opinion, it's never been as important as it is today in this current climate. However, you wouldn't associate workholding with Industry 4.0. Can you tell me the products that you have available for your clients in regards to Industry 4.0 and automation?
Well, I think everybody now wants to run a shop with as few people actually operating as possible. As you say, it's particularly prevalent at the moment. We have been asked quite extensively now. We've done quite a few setups now, which involve robots loading and unloading work holding. Our collets can be changed with a little gun that brings the collet in and out. That lends itself to actually a pneumatic device on a robot arm, which can change a collet quite easily and put it into a carousel or something like that, a stacking system ready for the next one. So changing the work holding, the collet system for bars is fairly easy for us. It's fairly simple. We can also then change over now an end stop as well. So we change over a collet and an end stop together. So that gives you a complete spindle work holding package, if you like, which is part specific, which can be changed over by robots. So literally you can have a work holding package at the side waiting to go on, and everything can just be changed over literally by robot. But more because of Industry 4.0 now, we've been asked to change over chucks, we've been able to change over mandrels, things on complete work holding packages now. But our system does lend itself to being changed over by mandrels, and that's the way we're going slowly with the Industry 4, is to make sure that you can not only change over collets, you can change over complete work holding systems, and again get the best work holding for the product.
So effectively, Nick, what you're saying is that you can automate your machine tool. So not only just automating the changeover of the components, but you can change the setups on your machine tool to enable that machine tool to run unmanned 24/7 and different setups, not just the same component overnight.
Yeah, absolutely. And that comes back then to your tool life and things like that, because you want your tool to last as long as possible. You don't want a tool to break halfway through a shift at night. So you want that to last as long as possible. So there's lots of interdependent parts to do with this. It's not just about the work holding. The work holding has to work with the machine, it has to work with the tooling, it has to work as a complete package. So they're not easy things to set up, these complete automated systems, but more and more people, work holding companies, tooling companies, machine tool companies are all working together to develop a system for a particular product, for a customer or whatever. And things are moving quite fast in that direction.
We've just had one question come in, Nick, from Joe Reynolds. What is the typical return of investment when moving from a traditional free-jaw chuck to the Hainbuch system? Have you got any kind of figures on that, Nick?
It really depends on the part, the value of the part, really. That's the thing. I mean, it's the value of the part, how many parts you're trying to get through. So it's very part dependent. You know, and so a lot of the parts we manufacture are high value medical parts, aerospace parts, things which have got quite a high value in them anyway. But it also lends itself to high process parts, low value parts where you need to change over quickly because you can't afford to mess around. So it's a difficult one to answer because it is very part specific.
Yeah, no, that's a good honest answer.
It's part of the process that we go through when we actually start to do a process with machine tool manufacturers and sitting down with the customer to actually find out what he actually wants, how much it's going to cost, when he will get the investment back. And we do try and factor that into things because obviously people don't want to pay thousands of pounds and never get the money back for it.
Well, I can honestly say, well, so basically what you're saying, Nick, if you could actually see the machine tool, see the components, see how they're currently making the component, yeah, you could be able to then assess and give them a rough return of investment. And what I've found in the past as well, from the smallest investment in work holding, you can quite often get the largest return of investment. And that is certainly safe to say, isn't it, Nick?
Yeah, I think so. It's not an expensive, it's not a horrendously expensive thing to change over work holding, to be honest. A collet chuck isn't a massive investment. It's not 10, 20,000 pounds. You know, we're looking probably for a 65mm collet chuck, you're looking 1,500, 2,000 pounds, which isn't a big amount of money when you think it's probably going to be on the machine for 15, 20 years producing. So it's important then to have the right work hold, the same as is the right tooltip.
Yeah, and again, having that on that on your machine for 15 years, if you can imagine, it's saving you all them cutting tools because you're not getting the vibration. It's eliminating vibration. It's reducing the setup times. It's interchangeability. So and you can use your machine tool to its full capabilities and give the machine tool better longevity because you're not getting the vibration as well. So if you put all of them elements together, the actual savings are astronomical. Now, Nick, I did an article on one of the previous MTD CNC publications on Industry 4.0 and how work holding was overlooked back in the day in regards to Industry 4.0, because people were analysing and gathering data from the machine tool, but they were not understanding the consequences that the actual work holding had. So effectively, Nick, what I'm trying to say is if the machine tool was given the data that there was vibration, they would automatically be assuming that the vibration come from the spindle and not the work holding. Now, what you've got some products that are actually now got chips in them that are monitoring the speed, and you've got some new technology in regards to Industry 4.0 for monitoring data in this way. Is that correct, Nick?
Yeah, we've got an IQ chuck actually, which has got a chip in there which can actually be integrated with the machine control by Bluetooth. So it can actually change machine spindles, speed, depending on what's required, what cutting force is required, what work holding pressure is required. So providing the machine's capable of doing it, it will talk to the machine control and maybe give you a very high clamping pressure for first operation where you really need to hold it hard, and perhaps you've put a bore down apart and you've now got a tube left, but you really only need to actually reduce the clamping pressure. That'll talk to the machine spindle and the cylinder and say to it, you need to reduce the pressure now. All that's done on the fly. It's not actually, it will reduce the spindle speed depending on what parts active cutting speeds need, and it will do this on the fly as part of the machine program. And it then monitors as well the machine pressure, the pressure that actually the collet chuck's putting on the part, so that you always get the best clamping pressure for the part, so you maintain accuracy.
Nick, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on and to have an insight into work holding solutions and engineering processing solutions from yourself. I mean, we've known each other for many years. We've seen each other at many shows. Nick, are you gonna miss Mac this year?
I don't think my feet will miss Mac or my knees, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, it's a good time to catch up with everybody that you haven't seen probably for 2 years or something like that, because all old friends are there and people you haven't seen, and competitors and things like that. So yeah, it's a good social event, but it is a good chance to showcase your products, certainly. I'll miss it for that, but yeah, no, my feet won't miss it at all.
And have you got any last thoughts on what we've been discussing, Nick? Any messages for the listeners and watchers of this show?
Yeah, all I would say is get the best product you can. It isn't about buying the cheapest product. It is about actually speaking to somebody who knows their field, whether that's the machine tool, whether it's the tool, whether it's the work holding. To get some advice before you start to actually think that there is only one thing out there. There's lots of different things. Our products are many and varied. Speak to the expert if you like. Didn't like that for the next
Nick, thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure to get your expertise and to have a good chat with you. We'll catch up with a few points when this is all over, I'm sure. Please, for anyone watching, we're doing this now, live question time once a week, every Monday. So tune in. It's at 11 o'clock next Monday. We've also increased the frequency of our podcasts, and we did a podcast recently with Dave Noakes from Hainbuch also, so that'll be released soon. Until next week from MTD QT, have a safe week, and we look forward to being back on the road. Take care.
Thanks.